This time we have the full written out chemical equation, and we're going to go ahead and come up with the words for it. It's still good to think about, do I have an ionic compound, covalent compound, single atom, or diatomic element? Let's start with this first one. Which kind is this? It's an ionic compound. I know that because potassium is a metal, and I should know what this anion right here is. Yep, it's polyatomic hydroxide. So this is called potassium hydroxide. I also want to go ahead and name this right here. What is AQ? Aqueous. So I know that the potassium hydroxide has been dissolved in water. That's why it's called potassium hydroxide aqueous. Okay, I want to acknowledge everything in this equation. So what about this? I can just use a plus. I could say reacts with. I could say is combined with. I could use a lot of different things. But for now, I'll just say plus. Okay, this one's tricky. So anything that starts with an H. Can you remember anything that starts with an H is a what? It's an acid. In this case, it's sulfuric acid. This time I wrote aqueous before sulfuric acid. It doesn't really matter. Before I had written potassium hydroxide aqueous, this time I wrote aqueous sulfuric acid. I could have switched either one of those and it really wouldn't have made any difference. Okay, so acids, let's get back to that. It's been a while, so let's review acid rules. So anytime I see an H starting off a compound, it's an acid. And the way I name it depends on the anion. So because this was an 8, sulfate, it's sulfuric acid. If it would have been just plain sulfur, it would have been hydrosulfuric acid. And if it would have been a sulfite, then I would have gone sulfurous acid. So you might want to write these down on your periodic table or somewhere where they'll be handy because you'll see some other acids. So again, if it starts with an H, that's an acid. If it's just a nonmetal, you're going to use that prefix hydro and end with an ic. If it comes from the ite, like sulfite, you're going to change the ending to os, so it's sulfurous acid. And if it's from the ate, like sulfate, you're going to change the ending to ic, but you're not going to use hydro like you did up here. So it's just sulfuric acid. Okay, so far we have potassium hydroxide aqueous plus aqueous sulfuric acid. Now we've got to take care of this thing. What's that thing called? That's the yield sign. I can say yields, I could say reacts to produce, I could say will make. There's really a lot of ways that I could handle that yield sign. Okay, so what are we making? Let's keep this one simple. Liquid water, and how about this last one? What's that going to be called? That's aqueous potassium sulfate. That's an ionic compound, so I named potassium and then the polyatomic ion sulfate. And that's it for this one.